Hi guys, hope you're all well. I'm well from a cold, so excuse my voice. So I hope everyone is okay and not too scared by all this talk of coronavirus and everything like that. Anyway, on off that topic, we hear enough of that every single day. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my septoptic dysplasia, which is my eyesight problem. Sorry about the state of my hair and everything. I'm feeling really unwell. I'm having a bad day health-wise. So septoptic dysplasia is it affects the optic nerve. It affects the optic nerve and the midline of the brain. And what that means is, in me, my optic nerve, which basically transmits messages from my eyes to my brain. So my optic nerve in my right eye is undeveloped, so it's smaller. So basically it doesn't fully transmit. It's a bit like having a television aerial that's not got all the connections almost. So you don't get all the signal. That sounds really strange way of putting it. And also the midline of my brain, which obviously houses the pituitary gland, I haven't got any diagrams or anything, is a lot smaller. So you've got like the midline of your brain is almost like the wall between the two halves of your brain. Worst case scenario, people with septoptic dysplasia are born, well, they do not generally survive outside of the uterus, because their brain literally is in two separate halves. Some people are born with literally no septum pellucidum, I think it is. They're literally born with no septum between that hold the two halves of the brain together. So obviously outside of the womb they just cannot, survival is just not viable. So, and with septoptic dysplasia it can vary in severity from people with like cerebral palsy to being born with actually no eyes at all, and you know, some people can be born albino. There's some problems that go along with it. It can also be known as dwarfism septoptic dysplasia. I'm only 5 foot, which means I'm the low end of average height for a woman. So, you know, thankfully not a dwarf. Sorry, I hope I haven't offended anyone. I had growth hormone injections from being the age of 11 through to 12 years old. Every night, 6 nights a week. Well, not every night, 6 nights a week for a whole year. I had a night off for whatever reason. You're allowed a night off a week. And you'd have to have the injection every evening before bed, because that's when you do most of your growing. When you wake up in the morning, you are slightly taller. I'm not sure how much, but I know you are slightly taller than when you actually go to bed at night. And hence why anyone with kids will find that they wake up sometimes, and I have had this with my little boy, and, you know, they wake up sometimes in the night screaming with growing pains, and my little boy is 8 years old and nearly as tall as his mummy. So we do reckon he's going to be like 6'4", 6'5". A lot of my family members are quite tall. I'm the odd one out. But that's the way it is. Anyway, so obviously the septoptic dysplasia, there's more things that can be wrong other than the eyesight. In unusual cases of septoptic dysplasia, you can get a cyst on the back of the brain, which they seem to think is like a hydrocephalus sort of cyst. again, if any of you have heard of hydrocephalus, you hear of people with the enlarged heads who look a bit like aliens. Yes, that is severe cases of hydrocephalus. But thankfully, I don't have that, but I do have a rather creepy kind of bulge at the back right-hand side of my skull. Which kind of, when I've let people touch the back of my head, they're a bit like, ooh! That gets them quite, that kind of creeps a few people out. So anyway, and mine is one of my balance centres. Good fun living in a town that's on cliff edges. Tell me why. I must have a death wish. I seem to manage to avoid the cliff edges quite well, actually. So yeah, basically, if you were to get me to try and stand on one leg, I can't. Going downstairs is a lot more tricky because I get vertigo, which I think is partly fear because I've also got a poorly leg due to cellulitis. That's a totally different ball game. You've probably heard me, any of you that watch, you've probably heard me blabbing on about my cellulitis sepsis, so I won't bore you with all that today. So yeah, the septic dysplasia, it can affect your pituitary gland, which can affect your growth and your development in like puberty, things like that. Thankfully, you know, I've spoken about my little boy, so thankfully, because, you know, my hormones aren't too badly affected. Kind of similar at the low end of average, so yeah. So they are a bit low, some of my hormones, but not so bad that it's stopped anything happening, like me having my little boy. And he's doing beautifully intelligent, handsome little man. And so yeah, nothing wrong with him. And again, they did tests when he was born to make sure he didn't have the same eye condition as myself. Which I can maybe do another topic on that. So anyway, back to the septic dysplasia. So, right, it can lead to quite a few little problems, some of which, I mean, when I did my research, when I changed county location, I was 16, so it was a tricky time for moving from paediatrician to adult medicine. So obviously, hormonally, and septic dysplasia wise, I slipped through the net. And until I did my research on Google, as you do, they said without the aid of an endocrinologist, the prognosis basically is not good. And at that point, I was like, what the heck? I haven't seen an endocrinologist at that point in about 20 years. And I was like, you're telling me, you know, I could die without the aid of an endocrinologist. Okay, I better get this sorted out soon. Because at that point, I was like, actually, what the heck? How have I managed so long without the aid of an endocrinologist? So I basically went to my doctors and kicked backside. So if you're not, you know, if you do have septic dysplasia, you don't have an endocrinologist. Even if, like me now, I know everything's relatively fine. I only had to see my endocrinologist once a year. So now it's all fine. Even if, you know, you have the relevant checks and then you think, oh, what the heck? What was the point? I mean, I am a little bit like that. I was worrying for no real reason. It's always good to get things double checked, especially if you have slipped through the net. Right. So anyway, I've seen my endocrinologist now for about 3 years. And basically, because I hadn't been seen in so many years, and because I'd slipped through the net, they have basically treated me as a new case. So that meant MRI scans, and it meant things. I'm trying to think of the name of it. There is a specific test that they call it for cortisol testing. It's some long-winded name. Excuse me, my memory is not good. Another thing, post-sepsis syndrome, I'll do maybe a video on that. I've had sepsis 3 times last year. So anyway, and somehow managed to survive. Anyway, a whole different story. Well, I suppose it does tie in, but so anyway, onward to talk about the septal optic dysplasia. So make sure you do see an endocrinologist if you do have it. Famous people that you may know about to do with septal optic dysplasia. Katie Price's son Harvey has septal optic dysplasia. I think it's slightly more severe than mine. So how to so medications that I'm on, right, specifically because my cortisol levels are low end of average, when I'm having a good day and I feel good and I feel well, I don't need to take any cortisol. When, like today, I need to have a cortisol actually. Like today, I've got a rotten cold. So I'm just going to take 10 milligrams of cortisol today just to pep my immune system up. Just to help get myself feeling maybe about 60% better would be good. So yeah, and take the cortisol is a good thing because as well with septal optic dysplasia, it can cause something called adrenal crisis, which again, adrenal crisis is your adrenal glands produce not only adrenaline, but they produce cortisol, which is your body's kind of hormone to do with stress and illness. So you basically, say if you were to break your arm or your leg, normally you're producing enough cortisol, your body would deal with it fine, no problem. Someone with low cortisol levels may break an arm or leg and go into a coma and die. That is how severe adrenal crisis can be. So mine, because my cortisol levels are low end of average, I only take my steroid tablets when I'm feeling poorly, and they again increase dosage when my leg flares up, and especially with how that's going at the moment. That's a whole different story. Right, so anyway, I'm trying to think of anything else. So another thing with the septal optic, I find that I cannot see depth. So again, steps is always good fun. I make jokes. God knows how my little boy coped when he was in a pushchair, because obviously he had been in front. You can't get buggies that you can pull, which probably would have been safer, to be honest. So the amount of times I'd be crossing over a road thinking there wasn't very much of a curb, and my poor little boy at the time, and his little buggy would go clunk, and I'd be like, oops, sorry darling, that was a bit more of a step than mummy thought. He's fine. He's 8 years old, bright as a button. Yeah, so if you've got any, I'll try, I don't know if I can get comments on my YouTube, because obviously my little boy used it in the past, and so now I think comments may have been shut off. I'll try and answer any more questions. But yeah, just look after yourself, guys, and stay positive, with all this coronavirus stuff going on, as I was told by my nurse when I had the sepsis, because I had it 3 times last year, there's 1,000 reasons why you could get it, and there's 1,000 reasons why you won't. So let's go keep positive and put that positive energy out, and hopefully things will settle down. Anyway, I hope you all have an amazing day and stay well. Take care. Bye.